Welcome to the world of the Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit, Silver Spur and Bentley Mulsanne. Your motor car is built to a specification developed specially for North American markets. I hope to be of help when you need reminding of the way its many features operate. I'll be telling you about the radio console, about driving the car, the air conditioning system, about the security system, and the many controls and indicators. First, some details about the unit you're listening to now. The radio cassette player shares many features with domestic high-fidelity equipment. Dolby noise reduction is an example, and you may like to know that this tape has been recorded using the Dolby system to take advantage of the benefits it brings. The radio offers 12 preset stations, 6 on AM and 6 on FM. To store a frequency in the memory, you use the rocker switch to tune into the station you want, and then simply press the memory button, the one marked ME, and within 3 seconds the appropriate station push button. In order to function, the memory needs a constant power supply, so you'll have to go through the procedure again if for any reason the battery is disconnected. Search tuning is another very convenient feature of this set. A touch on the rocker switch will initiate a scan either up or down your chosen waveband scale, stopping at the strong relatively local stations if the search sensitivity button, that's the one on the right-hand side marked LOC for local, is in, or at all stations if the button is out. If you're looking for a particular frequency, perhaps to store it in the memory, you can operate the rocker switch in a manual rather than an automatic sense by pressing in the button marked with a small M. Incidentally, the digital frequency display cannot show a second decimal place, but it is a great help to accurate tuning on FM to have the small mark, a sort of apostrophe, which indicates when a 5 would have occupied the place if there was one. Thus, if, say, 95.1 appears with the mark, the radio is tuned to 95.15 MHz. Full information about the radio cassette player is to be found in the printed material supplied with your motor car. So perhaps I need offer only one more reminder. To adjust sound balance between the front and rear of the car, you pull out the volume knob and turn, while the concentric ring behind it looks after the left-right stereo balance. In a moment I'll move on to some reminders about the driving of the car. And now some helpful information on driving. And before you start the car, please make sure that you're sitting in a comfortable driving position, and that you and your passengers are wearing seat belts. There is no denying the added safety they offer. And please confine the children to the rear seats. In many countries, this is the law. The driving position you want is there at the touch of a switch. Turn the ignition key to left or right, and adjust the seat controls in the recess between the seats. A manual squab adjustment lever down on the outer part of the seat cushion enables you to set the backrest angle exactly as you want it. With the ignition on, or in the accessory position, you can also use the four-way switches next to the seat controls to move the exterior mirrors. Starting the car is straightforward. Check that the foot-operated parking brake is on and that the pedal is pushed as far as it can go. Put the gear selector lever in park or neutral and simply turn the ignition to the start position. Because your motor car is equipped with petrol injection, mixture enrichment is entirely automatic. To start a warm engine, the procedure is the same, but you may find it helpful to slightly depress the accelerator pedal during cranking. In freezing conditions, extended cranking may be necessary, but if the engine has not started after, say, 15 to 20 seconds, release the key and wait for at least 1 minute before trying again. Incidentally, when starting, you'll be able to check all the warning bulbs as you do so, and I'll say more about these later. Once the engine is running, you're ready to select D, or whichever gear range you prefer. But before releasing the parking brake by pulling on the polished metal catch, we suggest that you put your foot on the brake pedal to avoid creeping. Once the parking brake is released, you move your right foot from the brake to the throttle pedal. The speed control mechanism is another feature contributing to the ease of driving this motorcar. First of all, switch on the system, and then, when you reach your desired speed, simply press the set button on the handle of the gear selector lever and let the electronic system maintain that fixed speed in the range 30 to 80 plus miles per hour. If you accelerate from that speed by pressing the pedal, the system will resume control when you take your foot off. Or if you wish, you can gradually increase speed by holding down the set button. But as soon as you brake, the control system switches out. And yet it will remember your chosen speed and return to it when you move the on-off switch to its resume position. In the Silver Spirit, operating the resume control when the system is in use disengages it, and that might be more convenient than using the brake. The gear selector lever also offers you an intermediate range for extra engine braking, rapid overtaking, or extra acceleration to a maximum speed of 72 miles per hour. The low position is a bottom gear hold, with a maximum speed of about 40 miles per hour. For those who prefer it, there's the usual kick-down gear change when you stab the throttle. When driving the car from new, we hope you will avoid hard cornering and keep below 70 for the first 500 miles for the sake of the new tyres. The engine has, of course, already been run in at the factory. In a moment, I'll give you some information about the air conditioning system. The Rolls-Royce air conditioning system is the most advanced, effective and unobtrusive in the world. It has the cooling capacity of 30 domestic refrigerators and a total heating power of 9 kilowatts. The reason why a Rolls-Royce virtually never mists up inside is because all incoming air is first frozen to remove moisture and then heated and fed into the car to achieve the temperature you wish. The system is so efficient that you will find that you actually do need that outside temperature indicator alongside the digital clock so as to avoid thermal shock when you step out of your air-conditioned environment. Basically, the design works like this. 3 temperature sensors monitor the air in the saloon. They command the system to feed air in through the bullseye vents, the central fascia duct beneath the radio, or the front and rear footwells, in order to maintain your chosen temperatures. The sensors will automatically control the rear window heater as well. The controls to the right of the steering wheel enable you to select the temperature which suits you best at upper and lower saloon levels. Most people prefer to be cooler at the upper level for driving alertness, warmer lower down for extra comfort. The thumb wheel temperature selectors offer a range of approximately 17 degrees centigrade at the blue end of the scale, up to 33 degrees centigrade at the red. The middle of the white segment represents about 25 degrees centigrade. To achieve the recommended level difference, turn the white segment to the left of the upper slot and to the right of the lower one. Please remember that these controls are temperature selectors. They do not control the temperature of the air issuing from the ducts. They establish climatic conditions in the saloon. So an essential piece of advice is set and forget. Altering the controls will not achieve your desired temperature more quickly. It is recommended that the function switch to the left of the selectors be left in the auto position, where fan speeds are automatically modulated to quickly attain and then maintain your chosen temperature. If you switch it to low, the fan operates at a constant speed more gently than normal. The high position runs the fans at variable speeds, rather faster than auto, and the symbol on the extreme clockwise position means defrost. But maximum fan speeds and maximum heat is directed to the windscreen. Incidentally, we also provide an off position, because there may be occasions when this is required. I would also like to tell you about several extra refinements to the air conditioning system that you may wish to know. For instance, you will notice a 15-second delay on the fans after starting the car. This allows the system to establish frozen and dried air in the ducts. Otherwise, the car might perhaps mist up after being parked into wind. Also, the flaps and valves in the system do not operate until the engine has been started. This saves extra battery drain. And of course, the fans will not deliver heat until the coolant temperature reaches 44 degrees centigrade. That is usually within a mile or so of a cold start. And as a result of customer comment, there is an extra refinement. The fascia auto switch to the right of the temperature selectors. This lets you override the system when pressed down to fascia and simply diverts air from the windscreen to the bullseye vents and central fascia duct on those occasions when the system is choosing not to use these outlets. You will use it when you want a flow of air at face level. However, there is an automatic reversion to auto once the engine is switched off, as the system likes to be in charge when starting up. So there it is, the Rolls-Royce air conditioning system. And to allow it to operate at peak efficiency, we recommend that you keep the central fascia duct open, the function switch on auto, the upper temperature selector set at left of center, and the lower one to right of center. And may I say again, set and forget. Next on my checklist is the locking system and the warning lights. The security system on the car is operated by two Yale keys. The square-headed master key operates all the locks, and the round-headed one operates only the doors and the ignition switch. I suggest, by the way, that if you've not already done so, you note down the key number on the card specially provided in the literature pack. To unlock a door, turn the key towards the front of the car. Initial movement unlocks that door. Further movement against spring pressure unlocks all the doors simultaneously. The luggage compartment may be unlocked from inside by pressing the button inside the glove compartment, for which you have the square-headed key, or from the outside by using the square-headed key in the exterior lock. The luggage compartment is automatically locked when you lock the car doors using the central door locking system. The door locks inside the car are operated by the sill buttons. Those in the front door operate like the external door lock. Initial movement unlocks that door, further movement unlocks all four. The main Rolls-Royce anti-theft device is the link between the transmission lock and the ignition switch. As soon as the ignition key is removed from the switch box, the transmission lock operates almost as if the selector lever had moved to park of its own accord. And so without the key, the car is totally immovable. This feature also has important safety advantages. Incidentally, you will have noticed that when you open the driver's door with the ignition key in the switch box, a warning buzzer sounds, and this is a further aid to security. For valuables, there is the lockable glove box, and also a nice secure spot covered by a removable panel beneath the floor of the luggage compartment. It is beside the battery. There's another innovation in the luggage compartment, the battery master switch on the top right-hand side of the forward panel. It is there mainly for the convenience of service staff, but for extra security, you might occasionally use it to immobilize the car. If you do so, do not forget that you will need to reset the clock and the radio frequency memory. By the way, to avoid damage to the alternator, do not use the switch when the engine is running. Now let's move on to the control switches and the warning indicators. The controls on the fascia center around the driving position. In the switch box, there is an accessory facility. This is the position to the left of the lock and allows for control of the front seats, radio and cassette, mirror adjustment and windscreen wipers. For all other services, the ignition needs to be switched on. There are a couple of warning lights on the switch box marked with standard symbols. The red light on the left is basically there to show if the charging system is not functioning correctly, but also serves to indicate when the accessory services are in use. The other, also red, warns against low oil pressure. Both lights are of course supplemented by gauges. Most of the other warning lights are in the cluster next to the switch box. Just to check that all the bulbs are working, all light up, or should do, when the ignition key is moved round to the start position. Incidentally, the ice warning and low fuel warning lights are dimmed when the side lamps are on, so that they do not become a distracting nuisance at night. There is one extra warning light that I'd like to draw your attention to, and that is the one over the blue main beam warning light between the main instrument dials, the one marked oxygen sensor. The sensor is a device which measures the oxygen content of the exhaust gases. That is important information, which the electronic control unit governing the petrol injection system needs to know very accurately if it is to keep exhaust emissions within design limits. The sensor is therefore a vital component, which justifies a monitoring warning light of its own. Like the others, the oxygen sensor warning light is tested when the ignition key is turned to the start position. After a cold start, it will stay on for a short time, but will go out once the exhaust system has warmed up. If the light comes on and stays on during normal motoring, there is either a malfunction in the sensor or the distance recorder incorporated in the system has counted 30,000 miles and is telling you that the sensor is due for replacement. Whatever the cause, you should ask your Rolls-Royce dealer to attend to it as soon as possible. In front of you are the two main instruments. The speedometer is electronic, more reliable and much quieter than the old cable-driven mechanical type. You may like to know that it records speed and mileage while you're driving in reverse, but that is a novelty arising simply because it works by counting pulses. Next to it, the large 4-in-1 instrument is straightforward. Although unusual for a modern car but a typical Rolls-Royce detail, the fuel gauge is used to give an indication of oil level in the sump when the button on the extreme left of the lower switch panel is pressed. Needless to say, this is best done when the engine is not running. At the center of the fascia is the digital display with 3 functions. On the left, the outside temperature reading that I mentioned earlier. It's in degrees centigrade, and it should be noted that it is accurate only when the car is in motion. Although only illuminated when the ignition is on, or in the accessory position, the clock in the center is of course functioning all the time. To set it, you press both those small buttons on the front simultaneously with a couple of pencils, or ballpoint pens, and this stops the counting program. To start it, you release the buttons simultaneously at a time signal, and you'll probably use the radio for that. This procedure starts the clock off at 0, so the final part of the setting involves getting the right hour and minute numbers up on the display by holding down the individual buttons until they appear. The instrument on the right is effectively a stopwatch, although the real title is Elapsed Time Indicator. The HS button is pressed to change the display from an hour-minute to a minute-second mode. R is for reset, ST is for stop or start. The digital display is also automatically dimmed when the parking lights are on. Let's go back to the left-hand side of the fascia now to look at the controls on the lower switch panels. One that hasn't been already mentioned is the wiper switch. That is perfectly conventional in operation, offering a choice of 2 continuous speeds or an intermittent wipe with a delay of about 7 seconds. The washer system for the windscreen is energized by pushing in the knob on the steering column turn indicator lever. The next control is that for the rheostat, which alters the intensity of the panel lights. It does not incorporate an on-off switch, as to save drain on the battery, the panel lights are turned off unless ignition and parking lights are on together. To the right of the panel is the button used to release the fuel filler flap. For safety's sake, the engine should not be run while refueling, so this switch will function only when the ignition is off. There is also a manual cable release for the filler flap. That might be used when the battery is disconnected, for example, and can be found in the top left-hand corner of the luggage compartment. To the right of the steering column is the hazard warning switch. The warning light for this is just below the radio with the seatbelt indicator. And further over to the right of the fascia, below the glove compartment, is the fuse board. It is released by the press button at the side by the passenger's door and is illuminated to help you change the fuses. A detailed chart shows which fuses do what. Apart from the fuses, there are 3 thermal cutouts on the board. They are the black boxes with red buttons. If for any reason one of the windows refuses to respond to its switch, or the central locking system, or the electric gear shift, or the headlamps or the seats, then the thermal cutouts are the first items to check. Press the appropriate red button to reset the device, and all should be well. Finally, the best car in the world deserves the best servicing. And please let me suggest that you only trust the servicing and maintenance of your Rolls-Royce to the dedicated, skilled and trained staff of an officially appointed Rolls-Royce dealer. You'll find a list of them, together with a lot of other valuable information, in the literature pack in the glove box. Also in there are the owner's handbook and supplements which give you much more useful information than I've had time for, like where to find the bonnet release catch, which is under the steering column. And if your car is a newly delivered car, you'll find a complimentary can of LHM mineral oil in the luggage compartment. It is presented as a reminder that the unique braking and leveling system of the car rely on the use of that particular oil, and positively and absolutely no other. Thank you for listening, and may I wish you many years of enjoyable motoring.